I've discussed card collecting before. And card collecting goes in with the whole idea of collecting anything that's related to hockey. Let me go ahead and put that aside. Let's discuss Pro Set. The first year. Remember the ugly year? Where they got everything wrong? But what's interesting is the bios on the backs of the cards. So let's go through some bios on the backs of the cards, and maybe this will explain part of the reason why I have these crappy cards. Because it's funny, it was in a live stream not long ago, or on a video not long ago, somebody said, just take those Pro Set cards and burn them, they're garbage. You don't keep cards or collectibles because they're worth money. I keep them because of the following. Ronnie Francis, Hartford Whalers. Francis finally broke the 100-point barrier for the first time in his 9-year NHL career. He's averaged more than a point per game in all but one of those seasons. Francis leads Hartford in every possible scoring category for his career. Ron also captained the Whalers, has captained the Whalers since 1985. He's interested in auto racing, golf, and tennis. Francis has his real estate license and plans to go into marketing after his playing days. Period. I'm guessing have ended was supposed to be before the period. But it's interesting because he wanted to go into marketing, and now he runs the Hurricanes, who don't draw very well. I found that really, really funny, actually. And I like Francis. Basil McRae. Why am I bringing up Basil McRae? Well, first off, because if you're a fan of Letterkenny and you didn't know who Basil McRae was, shame on you. They don't come much tougher than Big Basil. He was drafted 87th overall by Quebec in 1980, following a storming amateur year. After parts of 2 seasons with the Nordiques, he was shipped to Toronto. Then he moved on to Detroit, where the Stars signed him as a free agent in 1987. He has served an unbelievable 1,098 minutes in penalties in his 3 seasons with the Stars. 1,098 penalty minutes in 3 years. It's hard to find guys that get 1,000 penalty minutes in their careers now, much less in 3 seasons. Ulf Dahlin. This one's interesting to me for the following reasons. The Rangers had big plans for the tall Swedish center. He's 6'2". When they drafted him in the first round in 1985, although it says on the first round. They drafted him on the first round? I'm not getting that. He had just concluded his best season with the Swedish League with 59 points in 36 games, which is insane for the Swedish League. He had a respectable rookie season with New York in 87-88, but wasn't as effective during his sophomore campaign. After picking up 36 points in 63 games with the Rangers last season, he was dealt to the Stars. Ulf Dahlin was expected to be an offensive dynamo by the Rangers, got to Dallas, and Dallas realized they just had a really solid two-way forward, and Dahlin would go on to have a very solid NHL career. Gerard Gallant. Spuddy, in quotes, his nickname was Spuddy, has become one of the Red Wings' most reliable snipers with 30 or more goals each of the past 4 seasons. His best season was 88-89 when he notched 39. He's also a belligerent sort, as reflected by his penalty minute totals. He served 254 minutes last season. He's a native of Canada's tiniest province, Prince Edward Island. He returns there each summer. Gerard enjoys softball and golf. This is fascinating stuff. Oh, this is where it gets fascinating too. So here's Craig Janney. Now, I'm not going to get into my opinion of Craig Janney because I have opinions about Craig Janney. They started with when he played for Boston and wasn't very good, to when he went to St. Louis and he wasn't very good, and then he refused to report to Vancouver, which is fine because he wasn't very good. Then Vancouver got Jeff Brown as a consolation prize, and lo and behold, they go to the Stanley Cup final, thanks in oddly weird fashion to Craig Janney. The young center is a rising superstar in the NHL. He's had injury problems during his first 2 professional seasons, but has averaged at least a point per game. Janney's a slick center with an inkling for seeing a play develop before it happens. Craig performed brilliantly during the playoffs until virtually disappearing in the 80s in the finals against the Oilers. He couldn't cope with the blanket coverage of Esa Tikkanen that had been laid on him. Craig played with the 1988 U.S. Olympic team. Janney couldn't deal with solid defensive play, and Esa Tikkanen snuffed him out, is what that said. And that is kind of what happened. Janney would put up points, no problem putting up points, lots of assists. But in the big games, playoffs, whatever game you really needed Janney, he had a history of disappearing. Okay, now first off, we can discuss Glenn Healy's name being spelled wrong on the front and being spelled right on the back. Healy was originally signed as a free agent by Los Angeles in 1985 and became the club's number one netminder in 1987. He suited up for 48 games that next season, but was deemed expendable. It's because they had Mark Fitzpatrick, too. The Western... No, they both played for the Islanders. Never mind. The Western Michigan product quickly caught on with the Isles, appearing in 39 games for them last season. One of his most memorable games was a 48-save performance against the Canucks while he was still a King. I stated in a video, I believe it was yesterday, that the Canucks have a history of making backups and goalies that people may not be paying attention to, making them look great. Yeah, he had a 48-save performance against the Canucks. John Druce. This guy's an answer to a trivia question somewhere. John was the surprise of the 1990 NHL playoffs with 14 goals in 15 games. Only the Oilers' Craig Simpson outscored him, but he appeared in 7 more games than John. Druce was the Caps' second pick in the 85 draft, but toiled in obscurity until last spring. He had just 8 goals over the regular season, a far cry from his playoff output. And he didn't score in the regular season after that either. John Druce, the ultimate playoff performer that would disappear during the regular season. Odd. Gordie Roberts. I'm looking at time on this one. I don't want to go too long. I'm just pointing things out and passing along some trivia. Gordie Roberts is interesting. Roberts played 10 games for the Blues last year when his plus-minus rating of 6 was the best on the team during the postseason. Gordie began his career with New England of the World Hockey Association in 1975. He played in his 800th career game last season. Roberts was named after the great Gordie Howe. I didn't know that until I read this card today. So at some point I may have known it and forgotten. I don't need to go through that one or that one. Oh, this is interesting, and this is timely. Jim Benning. Yeah, the GM of the Canucks when he played for the Canucks. Jim was drafted 6th overall by the Maple Leafs in 1981. He became a Canuck in 1986 in a deal that sent Rick Lance to Toronto. He went on to be named Vancouver's top blue liner in 87-88. Jim's been hampered by injuries the past couple of seasons. He sat out 15 games in 1988-89 and 35 games last season. He's known to his teammates as Benji. Don't know that either. Benji. Oh, and yeah, I might end on this one. Bobby Smith of the Montreal Canadiens. I'm holding it sideways because it's sideways this way. This is where their opinion comes into these cards. Now, most cards are just stats now. Most cards, it's just stats. They might get into whether they're married or single and old O-Pee-Chee cards from the 80s, which is really weird. There was one year they decided to say whether or not every single player that they did a card for was single or married. Like it was a dating service or something. Smith's coming off a bad season. Yeah, it says right here, Smith is coming off of a bad season. 26 points in 53 games. He's coming off of a bad season. Never before had he failed to score 50 points. In 81-82 with Minnesota, Bobby scored 114 points, which is still a club record. That same year, he had a 7-point game. The North Stars made him the number 1 pick in the 1978 entry draft. He won the Calder Trophy for top rookie in 1979. He'll have to adjust to 9 new line mates this year after Mats Naslund returned to Sweden. I don't think I have to make that one the last one, though, because there's a couple here I wanted to look at. Oh, guys always ask me about long-term contracts. So here's Steve Yzerman, right? Greatest player ever. And he's coming off a 127-point season and a 155-point season the year before. Okay, so he's pretty good. Known to Red Wing coach Jacques Demers as Stevie Wonder, he's the Wings captain. Stevie's coming off his 3rd consecutive 100-point campaign, and he led the Wings by a whopping 47 points. That's pretty insane. Detroit has always thought highly of him, drafting him 4th overall in 1983. He signed a 7-year pact with the Wings in 1985, so he'll be around a little longer. His father, Ron, is an official in the Canadian government. So Steve Yzerman got a 7-year contract, which was considered crazy at the time in terms of its length. Now, Yzerman only got 7. He should have got 8. He should have got 8. Oh, this one. Yeah, no, I can't end before this one. So there's Clint Malarchuk. Now, we all know the Malarchuk story. Malarchuk's got a book on it. This book immortalizes it. Malarchuk could start in net for many teams in the league, but he's a backup with the Sabres. He had 4 shutouts for Washington in 1987-88. Clint nearly died in a game against St. Louis March 22nd, 1989, when a skate blade cut a 6-inch gash in his throat. Incredibly, he was back in action a mere 2 days later. Malarchuk remains winless in 11 career playoff games. That is the weirdest paragraph ever written on a hockey card. That they talk about, I played in Washington, and yeah, he should be a starter somewhere. Oh, and he almost died this past season. And, yeah, he hasn't won in the playoffs yet. That's weird. It's weird how they phrase it, and it's really, really, really odd. Fine, Guy Lafleur. Guy Lafleur with Quebec. The Flower, that's in quotes, says this will be his last season in the NHL. He's already retired once. He's the only active player who's already in the Hall of Fame. That's kind of a dumb thing to put in there because obviously he is. 2-time winner of the Hart Trophy. He's the NHL's most valuable player. He's also a 4-time All-Star and 3-time scoring champion. Lafleur won 5 Stanley Cups as a member of the Montreal Canadiens. In the NHL's chain of superstars, he was the link between Bobby Orr and Wayne Gretzky. So I thought that was interesting. And if you want to get into stuff that's interesting for old people like me, Slava Fetisov. Although here it's Vyacheslav Fetisov, which is his full name, and then he shortened it to Slava because Vyacheslav just doesn't roll off the tongue. Not in English anyways. Along with Calgary Rookie of the Year Sergei Makarov, Fetisov is the most successful of the Soviet transplants who entered the NHL last season. A longtime stalwart of the USSR's national team, he was often called the world's best defenseman. Slava started slowly for the Devils, but played his best hockey late in the season. He was the NHL's Player of the Week during the final week of the year. And he was damn good. Really, really good. Okay. This is where I'll end it, because this again epitomizes why I keep crappy hockey cards and why I collect all of the stuff I collect. It's so much fun. Glenn Hanlon. Love Glenn Hanlon. Glenn's paid his dues. He was initially with the Canucks, who sent him to St. Louis in 1982. Then he joined the Rangers in a deal involving Andre Dore. I think Andre Dore had already retired at this point. Not sure. A multiplayer swap made him a Red Wing in 1986. He's seen plenty of action in his 4 seasons with Detroit, appearing in an average of better than 40 games each season. He was tending net for the Canucks when Wayne Gretzky scored his first NHL goal October 14th, 1979. There's trivia answers in all these cards. So this is why when people say, oh, I got all this crap. You want it? Yep. Because I can turn crap into gold. Well, maybe not gold, but at the very least some trivia gold. So let me know some trivia gold you guys have. Little known facts, little known nuggets about hockey players, hockey situations, and even hockey gossip. Because there's plenty of that in these cards, which is weird. Saying a guy had a bad season, you will never see that on a card now. Discussing some of the things that are discussed on these cards that just doesn't get discussed anymore. This year's O-Pee-Chee, for example, there's no text at all. It's just player's picture on the front and the stats on the back, and that's it. And that's fine, I guess. But it loses some of the personality that these injury-riddled cards, and by injuries I mean errors, just the errors. I don't look at the career stats, because the actual stat lines here, they're almost all wrong. Even now, it's almost 30 years since a lot of these stats were, and I can see where they're wrong. I'm like, no, they split. No, that season he didn't spend the whole year there. No, that's wrong. No. But the paragraphs seem to be pretty correct. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. And I don't match because I didn't feel like it mattered, because I'm talking about crappy hockey cards anyways, so it doesn't matter if I match. So with Boston and Calgary in mind, thank you for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.